Welcome to this lesson, Solidity Programming and the Solidity Programming Language, presented by Coding Bootcamps. In this lesson, we are going to look at making payments in transactions and also some other items. And we've covered this, and we've covered this. So far, we have gone over contracts, basic constructs, more advanced constructs, loops, arrays, other data structures, mappings, and we've looked at functions. Now we're going to look at payments using Solidity. And this is what differentiates blockchain programming from other types of programming. So smart contracts take action on Ethereum transactions. So smart contracts will involve updating Ethereum wallets by transferring Ether. Smart contracts transfer Ether between users or Ethereum addresses using special global variables. And Solidity provides a rich set of tools to facilitate the transfer of assets and Ether. We saw this a little earlier, transaction properties. So the timestamp, that's always important. And the timestamp is in the epoch time. Gas left, that's important too. Any kind of message data, the sender of the address payable, and the value sent, and also a transaction origin. So please take a look at your documentation, the Solidity documentation, and the Ethereum documentation for these properties and others. Ether can be subdivided. We talked a little bit about this earlier. And it is based, when it comes to programming, it's based on the way. So the Finney is essentially 10 to the 12th way, and a Szabo is 10 to the 15th way, and an Ether is 10 to the 18th way. And the ABI specification, that's not unique to Ethereum. It is the application binary interface. So this is essentially a JSON set of tools or a JSON data that is how Solidity will evaluate your smart contracts. It can do things like test equivalence, string equivalence. It can evaluate hashes, and it can do much more than that, but is essentially based on JSON. If we take a look here, we can see how strings are compared. So we have two separate strings, and we're passing in two separate strings, and then we're using an ABI specification here to compare the hashes of these two strings. If the hashes are similar, or if the hashes are identical, the strings are identical. There's also, when it comes to us using Solidity, there's also a module for unit testing. So unit testing can help us, number one, do test-driven development, and it can help us with our unit testing, and it can also help us with regression testing, because we can automate those regression tests and continue to do those regression tests long after we have added to our smart contracts. We can validate that work that we did early on still runs. And there's also a debugger module, which is a visual debugger, which is a great time saver, and gives you so much better of an understanding of how your contract is running. And we can see here that if we want to use the debugger, we can click Start Debugging, or down where in the console when the application is mined, or when the contract is mined, or the transaction is mined, we can click this debug button and then step through the smart contract line by line. Very, very useful. This is the unit testing here. We can actually declare unit tests and then run as many tests as we need to. We can either check all or some of our unit tests. Ethereum time, again, is based on the epoch time, sometimes called the POSIX time. And this is the time since the defined epoch. And you can use that epoch time for comparisons. You can also use it as a condition. So we can we can declare our functions to look for a certain time, only after. And then our functions will look for that condition. And then there is address payable as well. And our address payable can send or receive Ether. So here is our exercise. So we are going to put this into a browser. And this exercise really requires that we use our roles. And as we go through and test this, do our ad hoc testing, we can use two different addresses. One address is the payment address, and the other address is the payee address. So one is the payor, and the other is the payable address. So let's take a quick look. It says follow the instructor. So here we have our contract, and I've already typed in here the roles. So what we're going to do here is we are going to click our compile, and we're going to follow these steps here just so we're able to understand. The two roles here are going to be the payer and the payee, each with their own addresses. Let's compile. And this is important here, so we want to deploy now. So we're going to deploy as with one address. So it says here deploy with. So we're going to use this address. I'm going to copy that address here into the deploy address. Click to the deploy button. So now we can see here we have several addresses that were given, and we're going to run with a different address. So it's the address ending in 773. So all of these addresses have a certain amount of Ether. So let's take a look. They all have about 100 Ether. So and we have to run under 773. Here it is right here. And let's make sure that we put in a value based on Ether. And let's use 20. So we're starting off with about 100 Ether. And we're going to pay the value of 20. So we have here buy asset or send asset. I have it in here as buy asset. So I'm going to click that. And then we should see our current address reduced by 20. And the address that we're paying, we should see that it ends in 160C, increased by 20. So let's click here. And we see that that was successful. It was successfully mined. Well, let's go take a look. So we can see the 773, where we're running, went, well, 79.99999. That's 80. That's what we were expecting to see. So that's 100 minus 20. And the address we were paying right here, it ends in 160C. Well, we started off with 100. Now we have 20 more. So we can see we went from the 773 address where we paid 20 Ether to the 160C address, ending in 160C address where we paid the Ether to. So we can see the payor ends in 773 and the payee ends in 160C. So take a look at this exercise and try it. Please try it yourself. And we just did the follow me. So here we talked about block and transition properties, subunits of Ether, the ABI specification, a little bit about unit testing, a little bit about debugging, a little bit about Ethereum time, and making payments using addresses in Ethereum. And again, please consult these resources, and please look at these resources for more training. And next, we're going to look at Truffle. Thank you.